So a little bit of neutral gray. I'm going to try this Quinacridone burnt orange in the neutral gray and see if that gives us a nice color for these tree trunks here. So that one here, yeah. This is actually a photo from, that's a lot bigger than this, and I painted it before, and it just goes to show you that you can use the same photo, you just recrop it. And you can come up with some really neat compositions. I'll take that up to about there. And so then we got our little branches going on here. I'm just going to use this brush sideways because I've got a flattened edge on it here now. And make these hints of branches. It's worth taking your time on trees like this, and it's just it's a detail here now that's probably going to mostly disappear. But if you take your time on these branches, what shows through is just going to look really good. And there's a stutter stroke I was talking about in that cabin painting, I think, or whatever. Whenever I paint trees, I try to mention that stutter stroke, which I learned a while ago. A stutter stroke is just when you start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, and you see the little bumps. That's what it does. Every time you stop, it gives you a little bit of a variation there. That one's not there, but I'm just trying to have a look here. And then over here, I'm just going to load up my brush again. This pigment is pretty thick. You can see it's wet down here, but it's pretty thick pigment. Now we've got these wind blown little trees here. It's a windy spot. And it's a good spot for fishing. I fish over here quite a bit on a point on the other side there. It's good for salmon. I call it the washing machine over there because it's the tide really starts going through really quick over here, and you just sit there in the boat just into the tide and you're not going anywhere. And then you're sitting in this tide chop, and hence the washing machine. And we got a few things going on down here, so we could do that there, just like that. And I got this thicker one here, but I don't know if this is the one that I'm going to want for that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to strengthen that there, just like that. Maybe give a little hints of things going on here. And it's a little bit, you want the tree trunk below bigger than the tree trunk above, so I'm going to leave that little highlight there, and I'm going to go down into here. And you can blend that in like that. You can get a little bit more color, some burgundy yellow ochre or something. I just picked that color up there. And it's a little bit strong. You can do a little bit of negative painting in here. And it'll just dissipate into nothing. Just like that there. So we're going to get this fancy brush here. This little bamboo thing, and we're going to load up with just some color here. Some of this undersea green is what it is, and I'm going to start at the bottom and to here. So what you want now is you want a great contrast between what you're doing and between what you're painting in the background here. So you want it pretty dark, and I want that a little bit more gray. It's a little bit too green there, and that's flowing nicely. Okay, so I'm going to go up here. You see it coming off the tip I was talking about? You got to be careful you don't get a flood here. But it comes to a nice point that'll give you these nice little marks that you want on here. And just blend that in with the rest of them here. There's all kinds of. You make these little marks right at the end. They don't necessarily have to be connected either. They're just blend that in over the trunk. Just like that there. And that's about all I'm going to do there. Now, this brush is about half dry here with pigment, so I'm just going to go ahead and make these little marks here. See if I can get these brush tips to separate. And the filaments and join these two here together just like that. It's actually turned out good there. I'm quite liking that, and they're still separated, so I can it just helps you make all these extra little marks and just bring that down into here just like that. And you can come in with some whatever color. You can just put some neat colors in here. Get some purple going on into here and a little bit into the tree trunk there like that. You can get some cobalt teal blue. Yeah, and just get some reflections of the sky going on into here. You don't want to do too much, but just enough to make it interesting. Quinacridone burnt orange, I'm just going to drop some of that into here. Just almost pure pigment. That way I can get it to contrast nicely there. And I'm just going to bring that up, just let it diffuse itself into that. And see the gap there? Let's just connect these shapes. Nice, so we got a nice little shadow going there and a nice little highlight. All right, now into the trees. I'm just going to sit down for this part because it's just easier to steady my hand when I'm painting the tree trunks. And so I've just mixed up some kind of grayish brown here. You can make them whatever kind of color you want. I'm going to start with this trunk down here because I've got the most pigment on my brush. And I've just got a rigger brush here, which holds quite a bit of pigment, but you have to be kind of careful with it. And when you do this, you want to make sure that this background color is dry. And it's going to blend it into here, into some series of like little sticks and cut up branches in this area here. And just keep going like that there. Now these branches going the other way. I've done some faint ones in there, which doesn't really matter if you go over top with them. And I apologize, let me get into the way. I'm trying to get out of the way here a little bit. I'm going to put a branch going this way here, like it's in the photo. And I want to go darker now. Wasn't quite dark enough there, because that's just going to disappear there. And while that's still wet, you can kind of just drop some moisture into there and do that there. And the same with here on the right side. It's still a little bit too wet, but you watch what it does if you just drop some colors in different spots. And when you're painting trees, you got to make sure that the bottom of the tree is bigger than up here, because you need a supporting structure or no, it's not going to look right. And then up here, just do some little stutter strokes. And they don't necessarily all have to connect. You just give like the suggestion of these branches. A little bit bigger one into here and blend that in. And it's better if you kind of don't correct them. And this just takes a while, and you just gotta kind of persevere, work through them over your beautiful sky you just did that you don't want to ruin. Like that, and come down into that one there, like that. And that works. This looks like it needs a branch going here. Little stutter strokes. Like that stroke, I didn't like that stroke there, but you know what, I just leave it, it'll be fine. And some hints of other branches going here, and don't fall out of my chair. I'm just leaning forward into this thing here. Like that there, and just a few more here. we're going to put some early spring leaves on here anyway. Yeah, so most of this is going to disappear, but you're going to see it, you know, through the leaves. And you got to be, you know, you're making a branch. You just need it big enough so it's going to support the rest of your structure, like I was just saying. And you can put some more just here and there, kind of give it the idea of some more there. Like this one looks a little bit dark, so I'm just going to pick it up. I bet you it's still wet. Yeah, it is. So there we go. And I'm going to go a little bit darker here on this right side. Drop in some more color, and it'll give it a little bit of a dimension here, just like that. Yeah, I'm just going to strengthen this a little bit here, down on this side here, and a little bit of neutral gray, and right out of the tube neutral gray. So this is going to spread a little bit here, put just some little shadows. So you can work on this as much as you want, or you know, if you don't want to, if you just want a suggestion of trees, you don't want to do too much detail, and that's fine too. Well, the trick is, I think, with these loose, you know, some loose watercolors, is that some part of it has to have some focus, and then perspective has to be right, and the detail has to be right. And that way, you know, the things that you just wash out, people can make up their own mind what it actually is. And it helps them a lot if you've got something, some good details somewhere. Like that there. That's about it. Okay, so I'm going to work on the next one here. Just mixing a little bit of sepia with some neutral gray. Gray it off. These trees look quite gray in the background here, and that's the one that's the most in focus. And I've got another one here. You don't have to paint them all in if they end up looking kind of not believable. You don't have to put them in, but there's another one right there, right beside here. Must have grown up from a seed from that one or something. So this is one that's going to be in behind here. There's one of these trees, and I'm kind of regretting putting it in already, but it'll be fine once we get some leaves on it here. But it's not as much of a structure as that bigger tree there. And then I'm just going to soften it just like that. So if you pick up pigment, you can, you know, and you're worried about what you're going to do on the next dab, you know, you picked up pigment, so you're going to transfer it again, but you can just roll it over to a fresh part of your paper towel, and it's all fine. Strengthen that a little bit there. Strengthen, I mean make it a little bigger, so it supports that. And a little line on the roof here. And then now that that's wet and the background is dry, you can pretty much drop pigment in, and it'll just follow that trunk down. And I've got this kind of brown color on here. Just drop a little bit more contour on this first one. Like that. Okay, and then the rest of them, you know, you've got some background little parts of trees and things, and you know, it comes out of the roof here where it goes way up into your sky. Some of these branches here go up a little bit higher because I kind of messed that one up there. And I'm going to go right to the roof line, being careful not to overpaint that. Just like that there, and put some, you know, some branches in there. There's a whole lot of branches coming off of these trees, and I'm not going to paint every one. I'm just going to let the foliage take care of the rest here as I do that. So that one looks kind of curvy in here. I'm just gonna maybe drop a little darker into just there, just for a little bit of a variation, and like that there. And there's more trees into here. Just for hints of suggestions of trunks, and make a little bit thicker one into here, like that, and they kind of disappear. Another way you can do it is just, you can move your brush down. If you've got enough pigment on it, you just move your brush down like that. And it gives you some little highlights and things too, and makes it a little bit different. I'm just going to continue on with that one there. And I'm going to make a little broken branch area here like that. And just little hints of other ones into here. Like that there. There, that'll do it for that little part there, I think. I'm just going to mix up some more pigment here and decide where to go next. I think we're going to do this bush right here. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now. And it goes up from the bottom. A little wetter brush here. And it goes right off the page here. We'll make it like there's two of them there. I'll put a little green into this one. Just like that. It's kind of going to overlap just a little bit. And a little undersea green. I just drop it into this wet part here, so we can get little splatters into here without getting it all over my painting here. And just like that. Okay, so we're going to work on these trees in the background here, and I've mixed up a bit of a mustard kind of color here with some Quinacridone Gold and some various greens until it looked right. And I mashed this old brush up, and let's see what it's going to do here. Not yellow enough, so I'm going to dry that off a little bit. Not the color I want. And dab that up there a little bit, just like that. Yeah, we've just got our suggestions of greens into here. And these are the ones that are going to kind of overlap in the background here. A little bit more Quinacridone Gold into there for the background. Yeah, and I'm going to mash that brush down a little bit more like a big old mop. Make all these leaves, because I don't want to paint all these leaves. It takes too long. And this works just as well. So it's kind of early spring. The leaves just emerged here. Everything's all nice and fresh. And this photo was taken, I think, around late May or early June. I think it was late May. Yeah, there's some little marks, little leaves coming out. If you use the photo as a reference, use any photo that you have, if you've got a similar scene as a reference. What I'm going to do here, a little trick I'll show you. And with clean water, you just wet the roof here. And you can let it be pretty wet and just let that water sit there. So now any marks that you get that you don't want, you can just use your paper towel and pick them up. They won't stay on there. And that's kind of the trick for, you know, you want to paint right to the edge, but there's some sky color there, so fix that up. And you see where it's wet there, then we could just pick it up and you just roll your paper towel into it there. And what you're doing is you're drying the paper. I've showed you this many times in other videos, and it really works well. And it let me paint right to the edge, right overlapping without really having to fuss and make sure that I was painting right to the edge there. Now, what you need to do though is, if you want to do that some more over here, is you need to wet it again. And because the pigment is dry above there, but it's not gonna, your paint's not gonna crawl. Okay, so just mash this brush a little bit more into here. Yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit of variation in colors. Go a little darker, a little thicker pigment. And these areas into here. And you have to be just a certain dryness on the brush here to make this work, because it's gotta stay like a mess, like this. And you don't want to overdo this. You can kind of look, and you can figure out when is going to be enough here. As you stand back and you look at these leaves, but you can see the background sky is showing through here. I got this pretty close in color. I'm quite happy with that now. So if you find some of these old bamboo brushes at a garage sale or something, or at a market, antique store or whatever, you can pick them up for really cheap usually, and they work really well. And that's getting a little bit dry, so I'll pick up some other green that I had in the palette over there. And I'll read off the page here. Up here, there's just some hints, some little leaves here you can put in. And you want your perspective, your background trees to go like this as well. You know, the further they are, the smaller they appear. And this little layer into here, I'm going to pop this. A little bit of this green into this roof here, which is actually not bad for a bit of a reflection. Just picking up the light from it, but I want to get into this area into here now. I was just going to come down just like that there, right to the top. So I'm leaving a little bit of light here, and I'll show you why in a moment. I have a special color for that spot. I got just some hints of yellow light. I'm just going to drop a little bit of it here. And this is going to mix on the paper. Just like that there. Just going to leave it like that. Now that's actually almost the color that I want. I'm going to go quite dark on this foreground one here, and I don't really want much of any light shining through, but I am going to mix on the paper here as well. A little quinacridone, burnt orange. That's actually kind of the color that I want for this bush here. That I was going to show you up there, but I am going to switch. And I have a tube of Quinacridone purple. And there's some kind of purpley flowers into here. Or seeds, or I don't really know what they are, but you know. But otherwise, you can put right on the paper from the tube if you want it really thick. But then you're contaminating your tube, so. But what am I going to do? I'm going to put a little bit on the palette here, just right in the corner. And I'm going to paint it in with a brush I can mash. I could use the same one here. I'm going to dry that off just with a paper towel, and I'm just going to dip it in this pigment here and just see what I can do here. And I'm going to overlap this little building here. Bigger flowers coming out of here. I'm going to put a little bit more there just to make it symmetrical. Rinse that off. And then there's some greens and things into here and more brighter greens in there. I want to preserve the contrast of that, even though, you know, there's not a whole lot of contrast in this photograph of that same area. And so I'm going to just carefully paint this in here and just see where it goes. Now this is wet here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch into that and create these little bands of negative painting into here. I'm going to run that down just like that there around my building into there like that. And I'm going to grab my little spray bottle and spray that. Now leave it alone. That's it. Go darker down into here. Get a little bit of sepia maybe, and make this little planter bed into there. A little bit like that. And like I said before, if you got paint on your brush, you might as well use it in different spots if you need it. Make this a little bit more brown into here, into shadow areas. And so we got a little bit of an area here to deal with, and we'll just grab some green and we'll fill that in. And we want a little bit more, maybe a little Quinacridone gold mixed with this green here. And I want a little bit of contrast. I want you to be able to see this line into here. Not exactly the color I wanted, but it's not going to hurt anything. And blend it in like that. And then I'm going to get some green, and I'm just going to cut around that there. That's a little too much pigment. I'll get rid of some of it over here. And clean up my brush a bit here. And a bit of sky blue poking around there, which shouldn't be there. And my feet from the field ends about here anyway, so. And there's a mountain behind here, so I'm going to go ahead and drop a little bit of gray. And soften it up just like that. That's all right there. Maybe a little bit of hint of mountain going by in a couple of spots there. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is I just had an idea for this, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Gouache, now gouache is water soluble like regular watercolor, And it does lighten up quite a bit. And I've got some here, and I don't know if I could spray it right out of the tube. I'm just making some highlights in this bush here, and that's going to bring it all forward. And it also dissolved, like I could wet that now and get rid of all that and blend it all in and look like mud, but that's how soluble it is. So if I spray it just in raw pigment like that, it'll just stay like that, and it's made just a nice effect there that I like. All right, so I'm going to look at this, and I think we're started the building next. So I'm doing this tree, and I'm seeing this bloom into here, and that's because I'd wet it before, and I'm going to leave it for now. And I can clean that up easily. I'm just going to break up that edge just a little bit here, just so it doesn't look strange, and into there like that and that and that. The biggest thing here is I don't want to lose the vision of this tree, lose the drawing. So I'm going to go really dark, and wherever I put this dark in, it's really just going to bleed into the rest of the painting here, and it's going to blend, and it's almost black on the side of that tree there. Now I don't want a whole lot of work to do there, so I'm just going to leave that till that dries a little bit more, and then I'm just going to work up here to there like that, and I can already see the texture coming out of this tree. And I'm going to start with this really dark color. This neutral gray with whatever I had left over on my brush. Well, that was a mistake right there, but I can leave it there and it'll just become interesting. These mesquite trees just grow every direction. And you can paint every branch like this, because I'm doing this because I've drawn this ahead of time, this to be closer to what this tree actually looks like. And this would be best painted plein air, because the colors that you see plein air are, well, it's so much easier to see the colors. There and there, like that and there. I still got just a hint of the foliage that's just coming out on this tree to paint in at the top here. So I'm not going to be too worried about all this detail up here. And then I'm going to throw in some of this brown here on this left edge, and it should really start to look like a tree. Whoop, that was a little bit of a mistake there. I don't like that. I'm just going to blot that a little bit with the paper towel, and it'll be good. Like that there. I got another branch coming up here. See, they just go and grow in every direction, these trees. So whatever you paint, it actually is probably going to be realistic, but whether it looks realistic in your painting is another story. Another big branch there. Let's run that right off the page. And a couple other branches. Sometimes almost the more that you do, the worse it'll look. And but you do have to let it paint itself. It's like that. And this looks like it can just be filled in with something here. Even though that's kind of what it looks like. There, just like that. Now with the colors that blend there because the paint was still wet underneath, I can go in here like this. This looks like I need to fix this a little bit here, so I'm going to do that. And the other thing you can do is just blot the whole thing, and it'll, that's what kind of I'm going to do here, and just give this some highlights in there like that. So much happier with that now. And now I'm going to give this thing some color. And while it's still wet, that's nice to do, because it'll just bleed into your other areas that you've already painted that are still wet. And if it's not wet enough, if it's not doing what you want it to do, you can wet it some more and just give it some color here. And because it's Arizona, I'm going to dip into my turquoise. And we'll just give it some highlights here and there. A little finger painting. You can do that with a brush, but it's quicker to just use your finger. Blend that in a little bit. Like that there. So then I'm going to grab just one of these cheap brushes that I have, these little bamboo things, and I've had these for a very long time, and get into some of this green here. And I'm going to start kind of where the green is clumped up a little bit here. And because this is rough paper, and this is, I was talking about choices before, and using rough paper will let you just drag the brush ever so lightly over this paper, and you create these little, all these leaves, just like that. You see they're creating themselves there, and you don't actually have to paint every individual leaf in. You could just make little clumps and then pull that away. Especially if you mash your brush like that, you can get that done and it actually looks great. Just like that. Reminds me of Bob Ross for some reason. There. Alright, I'm just going to get a little bit of gray and gray off some of this. Just to tie that into here. And you can see how dark this tree is here now too. You can kind of and you don't want to get rid of everything that's in the background here, so you got to do this. You can't be afraid of it, but you got to do it until it looks right. So that's about right there. So I'm looking at how this is shaping up here. I'm just going to blend this color a little bit more. That in there, and I've got a little bit of undersea green, and I've got a lot of pigment here. Just lightly tap it onto here. And that should diffuse itself nicely, and I'm going to put just a little bit into here too when I'm at it. I like to be going this direction because it tends to spray in a vertical line, but I don't want any in the sky, so I'm going to go in this way here. I need that just a little bit more wet. You see what I mean? It's sprayed in this direction. So I can make verticals by spraying here, but I don't really want to get a lot into the sky, so I'm going to persevere. Clean that off. Snow green. Yeah. Brush. I'm trying to blot some of this a little. Oh, do that. Just like that. And you see how you can get rid of it if you just wet it and then press straight down and just pull it off like that. It just a little bit too much, and then you can have a look and see those little splatter marks, and you can just add some water and get rid of some of them there. So right in here, I'm just going to go down at the bottom here. This mesquite is really black down at the bottom, and you carefully lay in almost pure pigment down into these areas, and that'll define the branches a little more. And that's the one that I blotted out before. And you can just put some, just a little spots of dark colors into here, and it'll really make it, it'll define your branches nicely. And if you find you've done it too much like that, you can use some water or your finger and help it look the way you want it to look. And I've got some branches in there, or some leaves. I don't really want to mess with them too much. So that's about it. I'm going to let this dry a little bit, and then I'm going to work on that tree a little more. So now I'm looking at this tree, and I've got 3 different kinds of salt here. I've got regular table salt, I've got coarse salt, and I think this is kosher salt here. And I can drop some of this in, and each of them look a little bit different. You can experiment with them if that's something you want to do. And I'm just going to drop a little table salt into this tree trunk here, and it'll give it a little bit of highlight. It's too dry up here to do much anymore with it, except for up there. It's good. Maybe a little bit here and there. And the rock salt, or the coarse salt, it does make squares about that big when you drop it in there, and the kosher salt seems to, I think it dissolves a little bit easier. So I'm just going to drop some of that in there like that. And this, I'm seeing this black line here that I put in. I'm just going to add some water above it. And that'll do 2 things. It'll help the salt do something, give you some texture, and it'll blend it in a little better. It just helps give that tree some more dimension again. If you help that out there, just like that. And people really like tree paintings. So it's worth putting in a little bit more effort. And it really doesn't take much more time. You just kind of put in some extra detail in there. And just make sure there's nothing that really stands out. And if you stand back, you can really look at it. That's looking pretty good. Like I said, one thing I don't like is how all this looks into here. And I'm just going to widen that out a little bit, just like that. Yeah, that looks better. There's a better supporting structure for this tree. And they do grow in a weird direction, so sometimes you just have to change it to make your painting look better from what it actually looks like in real life. That's looking great right there, I think. You got to stand back and have a look at these paintings. Even though this is a little bit smaller than, it's 6 by, or maybe a little bit more. Maybe 7 by, I don't know, 8, 12, something like that. Anyways, but I'm just looking at this from behind my stool here, and I think I'm just going to let it dry and see what it wants after that, if anything. If not, then it's pretty well going to be done, and like normal, I'll look at this in the next day. So thank you for watching again. I'm just going to scrape the salt off of this once it's dry, and we'll see what it looks like. I'll post the end picture on this video will be the final result after I scrape the salt off. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. It helps me out, and give it a thumbs up if you like it, and give it a go. Talk to you soon. See you later. Bye for now.